Call the meeting of the County Board to order Tuesday, July 23rd, 2013. Stand and pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take Grant.
Get better. Roll call.
I quit fighting you.
You ready?
Oh, we can do it. Are we here? Oh, golly. Oh, here we are. President. Sure, here we go. Okay.
All 21 are present. Motion to present the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That is passed. Correspondence, there's a couple letters in your packet. Veterans Benefit Expo is the one that's August 7th, 2013 at Stone Harbor. The other one is from the Department of Military Affairs for Emergency Management. Everybody's read it. Next is public comment.
Good morning, I'm Victoria Saranich. I live in 4145 Cherry Road, Sevastopol. I'm here as an observer for the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak? Next is a special report from Dortran. You can come up to the podium if you would. She's going to tell us everything and all we want to know about Dortran.
Absolutely.
Okay. Could you introduce yourself first? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Pam Bush. I'm with the local nonprofit called Dortran. I'm happy to be here, so thank you all, and I'll keep it short and brief because I know your time is valuable. So I'm going to start this morning talking about Dortran. There was a brochure in your packet, so I'll be working from that. Basically, Dortran was launched in 2007 as a research project through the United Way of Door County to investigate what exactly were the transportation issues, because the needs assessments were showing that people were not able to get where they needed to go. United Way was able to get a community impact grant from the Community Foundation. So we did some resident surveys with UW Green Bay, started tracking phone calls, hearing from people what the issues were. We learned right away that affordability was an issue, so we then looked for funds to start what we call a half-price taxi voucher. We still continue that program today. We've subsidized over 16,000 trips since we launched it in November of 2008. Basically, that program, we've got federal funds where we subsidize if they're taking a privately owned taxi ride, so we're supporting local business in that program. We also collaborate with the Washington Island Community Health Program and Door Cancer, so we can assist individuals who are taking multiple ferry trips to and from medical appointments. We also partner with the Sturgeon Bay Y this summer for some of their commute costs for their children activities. Last year we used some of those funds also to collaborate with the Boys and Girls Club. So the voucher funds go far beyond what they started out to do, but certainly with 16,000 trips to date, we've been able to help a lot of people afford using those other systems. The other thing that we've done, we've worked with the County of Door through the Veteran Service Office and then also through the Senior Resource Center to offer a veteran transportation program. After the American Red Cross left, who was doing the transportation, left, we quickly launched a system within 2 months to handle those requests as well. Basically, once a week, we schedule trips to either Milwaukee and Cleveland or Appleton and Green Bay. The veterans call us, schedule their trips. We work with volunteers who actually drive a county-owned vehicle to and from those appointments. There's a wheelchair-accessible van that we use from the Senior Resource Center. If we have increased requests, for example, we're actually doing 3 trips due to needs by our local veterans this week, we also have an option to use another county vehicle. So thank you all for your support of that program. We've served over 80 vets to date and made over 500 rides. So that's pretty phenomenal, and it's increasing dramatically. The other thing that we did since the Red Cross has left is start a countywide volunteer transportation program. This is really to meet the needs that aren't being met either through the county system door-to-door rides or through the half-price voucher program. So if somebody is in a service area or can afford the voucher program, they would not be a fit for our countywide volunteer program. Basically what we do there with United Way and federal funds that we receive is reimburse volunteers mileage for driving their personal owned vehicle. Majority of trips so far have been to medical appointments. For example, here to Green Bay, using a taxi is $180 round trip. If they're using a voucher, it costs the individual $90. If that's not affordable, the volunteer program is usually under less than $20. So again, that's another program we've started in order to catch those unmet needs. We're all about affordable, available, accessible transportation. That program, we've served 46 people to date. We launched it July of 2012, and we're just over 75 trips at this time. A lot of what DoorTran does as well as coordination. As you've probably heard me say, we've partnered up quite a bit with the county, local agencies and things to be able to stretch our budgets a little bit further. Certainly the next thing I'm going to talk about is door-to-door rides. That's a huge partnership and one that's actually recognized nationally. So I want to thank you all for your support of the County of Door for going after those funds and being able to continue to expand that system. Jill has the map up there. And why we're nationally recognized? Because we've got collaboration of the county. We have a nonprofit, the Sunshine House is within those connector systems and serving general public. And we've got our Senior Resource Center on the road. The contractor for the County of Door system is Abby Vance, so we've also got a private for-profit company in that collaboration. I'm actually speaking at a regional summit this week on creative solutions because they see Door County as being very creative in how you've been able to draw down federal funds using local state funds that you were already receiving, which is phenomenal. And then to go and share those with the for-profit, the nonprofit, and then the county system. It's really truly tremendous. Roger Teepee reported at our Board of Director meeting last week that door-to-door rides served 29,000 rides in 2012. Already in 2013, the first 6 months of the year, that system's up to 18,000 rides. So it continues to exceed what we can put on the road. There's currently 6 taxis on the road, in addition to the Sunshine House fixed route system. I think what I'll do is kind of review from the map. There's a peach-colored small circle around Sturgeon Bay. That system was launched in 2010. It was a 3-mile radius. So that's where it began, with one taxi, and we're talking 2010. Here we are in 2013. We now have 6 taxis on the road. That's the door-to-door vans you see operating throughout Sturgeon Bay and Northern Door. So the green shaded areas, those are all areas covered by those vans. So it's a door-to-door service. Somebody can now actually travel from Bailey's Harbor to Sister Bay if they'd like. They can travel from Southern Door School up to Sevastopol School. So those are kind of the 2 coverage systems. That's door-to-door. All of the lines that you see, the yellow one, that's a Friday connector system. That's actually the Senior Resource Center bus. All of the other colored lines are the Sunshine House. Those are routes they were already operating, but with the county sharing funds with the Sunshine House, they're able to open up their doors to the general public as well. It was a little bit scary at the beginning. We weren't sure if people were going to be using the system, and they actually enjoy using the fixed route system, and there's been friendships that have grown. So it's been phenomenal to watch that grow. We are hearing already from folks in Southern Door area wanting a little bit of an expansion. For example, the system currently goes to Southern Door School. There's also a mobile home park just beyond Southern Door. So we continue to work with the County of Door via Roger Teepee, who leads that system, to look at where those unmet needs are, because we're tracking them at DoorTran. As we receive calls and the rides aren't being met through current systems, we let the county know that so that they know where to expand it and use those dollars wisely. And again, that's a brief overview. I know that you had these items in your packet, but I wanted to leave some time also for questions or anything like that. Anybody want me to go further in depth on anything or any questions? Yes,
Could you explain the cost for using this system?
absolutely. There are reduced fares for parts of the system based on either age, ability.
He's mainly age.
Pardon me?
I'm just kidding you.
Okay. Within the original 3-mile radius, it is $1.50 for individuals who may have a disability, veteran status, be over the age of 60 or under the age of 22, and then it's $3 for anybody not fitting within those categories. And I have to look at this. So in the expanded Sturgeon Bay system, I don't want to quote it wrong, so I'm going to read the literature here. General public is $6. Any individual 60 and over, the 22 and under, and or with a disability or veteran status is $3. So again, somebody can travel from in that expanded area, Southern Door School, to a local business for either $6 or $3. In the Northern Door system, that's a Monday through Friday system, where Sturgeon Bay is a Monday through Sunday system. They have the same fares, I believe, as the expanded system, but they also have a midday connector. So anywhere between 10:30 and 1:30, somebody can travel from Sturgeon Bay to the Northern Door system for a $10 flat fare. And then all of the other connectors, for example, the Sunshine House fixed route system runs in the morning and then again in the afternoon. Those are based on the service area, most of them being $3. The Friday connector, the yellow one, that's a $5 per trip. So somebody could get from Sturgeon Bay to Sister Bay for $5 and then back again for another $5. Yes.
And the last thing, we go in Sturgeon Bay to Sister Bay and back for $5. So $10 round trip is what it boils down to, right?
On the Fridays,
Yeah.
correct.
And so if I had a medical appointment, I live in Sister Bay, and I want to go to the hospital for a medical appointment at, say, 11 o'clock in the morning. How do I do that?
Well, 11 o'clock in the morning, you would either, I don't think the 10:30 midday connector would get you here in time, so
All
you
right, so
would,
make it 1 o'clock in the afternoon then.
okay. The 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the midday connector could get you there, so that's a $10. They take you from Sister Bay to your medical
From
appointment.
Sister Bay itself, or would they go out in the country for me?
Anywhere in that Northern Door service area to the Sturgeon Bay service area.
Okay, so I come down to the hospital. What time would I have
Correct.
to get on the bus to come down here?
The midday, you would take the van, so they're door-to-door, the midday connector, and then to get home, you would use one of the fixed route connectors. So you would look at hopping on with the Sunshine House, they'd get you up to Egg Harbor, and then you take the door-to-door van in the Northern Door service area and get up to Sister Bay. So the fixed route connectors, there's meeting points and transfers, where the midday is a door-to-door connector.
So do you have a time window that all this would take? I mean, is it possible to
Yes.
go to a 1 o'clock appointment and still make it home?
Yes, as long as you're done when the Sunshine House bus leaves Sturgeon Bay, about 2:45, 3 o'clock. Yep. The brochure, and I have extras if anybody wants them, basically they're broken down. Veteran Communication did a wonderful job for the county putting this together. You know, if you're coming from Algoma or whatnot, you're taking the Algoma connector. It lists exactly what the times are, what the fare is, where your transfer is going to be. If you're the Sister Bay connector, it's listed, that kind of thing. So it's all in this as well. And again, I have hard copies as well as Roger does. Okay. And we work a lot with people because the connector system can be confusing, even for us. That's why we're constantly pulling this out. We work a lot with trip planning with people where they call Dortran. We go over where they need to travel, what times they're traveling, and we just kind of lay it out. We also look at affordability. An example is a family of 4. Door-to-door may be a better option at certain times, depending on what connector, plus the availability to fit that family. Or sometimes the half-price taxi vouchers might be more affordable, that kind of thing, because they're just paying that one fare rather than the per-person fare on the midday connectors. So a lot of trip planning. If any of you or any of your folks in your district have transportation issues and you hear from them, have them call us. We would love to work with them, track what their needs are, and help them get to a system that will work for them.
I have one other question. I see your van, I live in Northern Door County, and I see the cars around quite often up there.
Okay.
And
Great.
do you think it would be beneficial if the cars waited in a central location? I mean, I sometimes see them at the boat launch, I sometimes see them at the library, I sometimes see them waiting at the public beach. I was kind of wondering if they had a designated waiting area, if that would help.
My understanding from Abbey Vans, because they do this in Sturgeon Bay as well, a lot of times they'll park at the Cherry Point Mall. If they're not in service or on break, they request that those vans be in the most visible populated areas. It very well could be that maybe they took a rider to the library, so now they're waiting for them. I think they try to stay as central as they can based on the requests they've been having. But certainly the Northern Door system, I think, has room for ridership yet. The Sturgeon Bay system is, as fast as Roger can grow the system, riders are filling it up. But certainly more folks, I think, in the Northern Door could use it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Leo? Then Roger.
With the number of dollars that you collect and the providers that you have, how is that divided or how is that shared?
In a specific program mind or in general?
Well, if you pay $3 or $5 or $10, where does that money go? And then how is it provided to either Sunshine House, what part is maintained by Dortran, and where else do you go?
Well, door-to-door rides is a county of door system, and Roger's the king of the budget. So Roger, do you want to answer that question?
I can probably handle that better. The way we set up the system is we pay ourselves first, so that what we do is we absorb the fares back into our system, make sure that the senior center, which is actually the focus of and the central point that everything pivots around, gets paid first. So we make sure we recover all of our costs to operate the whole senior center operation first. Then we pay Abbey Vans according to a per hour flat fee, so it's not a matter of vehicles or mileage or whatever. They just get a flat rate per hour, which we negotiate in advance a year and ahead of time. They've actually held their rate the same for the last 2 years. They've not even increased it in spite of increased costs of operation, gasoline, whatever, just by virtue of the volume. So they're paid out at an actual per hour cost times the number of vehicles times the number of hours that are out there. The way Sunshine House is reimbursed is they submit a request to us quarterly, and that factors in their costs, and we reimburse them up to their costs, which are only a portion of their total system costs, because they're not running just for us alone. But we have been able to leverage the same amount of local funds and funds we already had in place and continue to grow the system by virtue of increased ridership. So the actual extra money coming into the system is volume of riders, not additional local money. The other question I was going to clarify before was when you see the colored lines for the Sunshine House bus and the Senior Center bus running, they're sort of in a funny way, they're drawn as kind of a big fat line, because unlike most fixed route systems which run by a certain corner and you have to be on the corner, these buses actually can run up to half a mile off route anywhere along that route. So if you are going to be somewhere kind of near that route, they can actually drive off route and go pick you up at your house. Unlike most fixed route systems which run just on the road they're supposed to be on and nothing else. The reason we do it that way is because we have a lot of people, and our ridership is about 80% elderly and disabled, and very often they're not in a position to walk 2 blocks to a bus corner. So to go get them is much more practical, and that way we don't have to do too much special accommodations. The other thing we do that's different about our system than most transit systems is we run transit and paratransit in the same vehicle. Typically, most bigger systems have a transit system which picks up people that are ambulatory, and a separate system, paratransit, which picks up people that need wheelchair or have mobility issues. Our system is set up to accommodate all passengers in all vehicles. So anytime you call, you don't have to call ahead and make a special arrangement for a wheelchair ride. Every vehicle can accommodate a wheelchair. We did that on purpose because of the number of wheelchair passengers we have in Door County, which has surprised us by the number, actually. We think this population was probably sitting at home a lot. And they, once they figured out they could ride with a wheelchair relatively easily, they're riding it like gangbusters.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate the time and listening, and give us a call, please, if you have any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Good job.
Next on the item list here is the administrator's monthly report.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. In your packet, you have the monthly report for July. As you all know, there are a couple of reasons why it's important that we relook at the operation, in addition to those items that are in the packet that we talked about and we've talked about throughout this past year. We have the end of 6 of our labor agreements at the end of this year on 12/31/13. We will have an opportunity to implement Acts 10 and 32, which changes significantly how we deal with 4 of those 6 labor agreements. That is a big driver to what we're spending most of this year doing. In addition to that, we all know that in 2008 we had what's close to considered a Great Depression. We saw a dramatic drop in assessed values. We, that same year, also instituted levy limits. Instead of the increases that we were allowed, the increases in levy limits were to net new construction only, to growth. Growth right now is at about less than 1%. That dramatically changes how we must fund our operation. So that is talked about briefly in that monthly report, the written piece to you. What I didn't include in there is some of the numbers on how this affects our employees. Right now, if we ran a payroll record for Door County, we would have roughly 500 or more employees. That's a significant number of people that work for us as an employer. 500, probably even in the 550 range. That includes all those seasonal and part-time employees that become our employees throughout the year. On average, that 500 seasonal winnows down to about 300 to 350 FTEs. Full-time equivalents is the term. Full-time equivalents is the number of employees that work on average 2,080 hours per year. Roughly 350 is the number that we talk about. Right now, Door County has approximately 80 to 100 of those that are completely non-represented. Employees like myself, employees like Jill, Grant, many of the folks sitting in the back of the room. 80 to 100 are completely non-represented. So what you could today, if you scheduled something on your agenda, could affect their benefit package or their pay. At the end of this year, we will have another 125 to 150 joining that largely non-represented ranks. That is a tremendous number. That is part of what's driving what we're doing today. There's roughly another 60 to 80 that will continue to bargain as they always have. Those are our public safety, our sheriff's deputies, and our paramedics. But imagine when you have that kind of transition, 125 to 150 employees, that we now will add to that pot of 80 to 100. So to do the quick math, that means that we've got about 250 employees that we are going through all of these changes this year. You already took some action earlier this year in April on the health insurance changes. They'll be effective January 1, 2014. We may not see the complete fiscal impact, the savings that we talked about, until 2015, but nonetheless, it was our opportunity to change some of those benefits that we needed to take a look at. Leave it at that. We also adopted an employee handbook. That was that macro level piece that established the legal relationship we as management have with our employees. We have another piece that's in the works, that compensation study, that we're going to spend the rest of this year working on. The admin committee will be getting a primer on our pay grades and on what those labor contracts contain for their table of how employees are paid. We're going to continue that the rest of this year. We also have that administrative manual that's in the works right now. These are tremendous changes. There are tremendous conversations going on in our hallways and in our grocery stores when you have that number of employees that will be affected by the actions that you take and we take to prepare those employees for all of the changes. So I thought, in an effort to minimize some of the misinformation and some of the gossip that goes on and some of the fear that goes on when you have this many changes that are occurring within an organization, on your behalf, on my behalf, chose to conduct some listening sessions. So we had 6 one-hour listening sessions this past month. They were preceded, the listening sessions were, by a newsletter, which you all got a copy of, which outlined the changes that you already adopted, gave our employees as much information, because remember, we're nothing without them. Without the employees in the field doing the work that you authorize at every meeting, we don't exist. So in order to share that information and to educate our employees as best we can, we put together this newsletter outlining the changes and then held these subsequent 6 listening sessions to hear what their concerns were, to hopefully take a deep breath. Let's talk openly about why we're doing what we're doing. In addition to those things outlined in the written report, the changes that have happened to us economically, globally, the legislation that was adopted at the state level, let's take a deep breath here and understand that Door County is not going to jump off a cliff on January 1, 2014. But there are changes that we, as the leaders of this organization, and that our taxpayers expect from us in this next year. So we held these listening sessions, and I know several of you wanted to attend, and I promised you, in exchange for not being able to attend those meetings, that I would give you a wrap-up and a report. That's provided in your packet. I won't go over each individual Q&A, because I promised the employees when I had these meetings that each of those one-hour sessions were kind of like Vegas. What happened in those meetings stayed in those meetings, particularly if they related to just 1 or 2 employees. But I wanted to give you a generalized version of what the employees were asking, what concerns they had, and I won't go through it. There's about 5 or 6 pages, and I think the chairman would like to continue with the rest of the meeting, but that's for your reading pleasure. I think the meetings went well, but there are concerns, and they'll continue. And we'll try as a management team to do this as much as we possibly can in the future. But I think it's important that our employees educate themselves on the training, or on the information and the changes that are occurring, because they'll be better employees in the long run if we do that. So in any event, any questions regarding the report that's in the written report, the 5 or 6 pages that's in your packets? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, motion to approve the minutes of the June 25th meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Kathy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolutions. John Ninus, would you like to read the resolution and memorandum to Roger Miller and then make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It would be my honor. Roger Miller died July 1st, 2013. Supervisor Miller was appointed to Door County Board of Supervisors in November 1981, and thereafter elected in April of 1982, 1984, 1986, 1988, and 1990, representing District 1, towns of Union, Brussels, Wards 1 and 3 of Forestville. Supervisor Miller served on several committees, including Ag and Extension, Land Conservation, Unified Board, Data Processing, Land Information, Ambulance Study Committee, Recycling Solid Waste, Door County Chamber of Commerce representative, and elected member of the Highway Committee. Roger served as chairman of the Emergency Services Council, Medical Services, and Emergency Services Communication Committee. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors assembly in regular session on this, the 23rd day of July 2013, extend our sincere sympathy to Roger's family with this acknowledgement of his dedication to the citizens of Door County.
Would you like to make the motion, John?
I so move.
Is there a second? Second by Biz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is passed. Chuck, you want to bring forward the resolution 2013-48?
Okay.
Explain it?
I bring forward Resolution 2013-48. It's a petition to the Secretary of Transportation for airport improvement aid by Door County Chairland Airport, Door County, Wisconsin. What this basically is an airport improvement plan where we receive state and federal funds, and we have to submit a proposed plan, which takes us out approximately 5 years, as to how we plan to spend those funds and what we need to do at the airport. I guess the major project under this is total reconstruction of the east-west runway. So what this is providing the required information back to the state as to what we plan to do with the money when we get it. So I make a motion to pass Resolution 2013-40.
Okay. Seconded by Ben. Are there any questions? Hugh?
I have a question. Is the extension of the north-south runway a dead issue at this point?
At this time, there's no interest from the state, I guess, for us to go north. And I think going south was kind of prohibitive because of County C. So I guess, yeah, you could probably call it pretty quiet right now.
Thank you, Chuck.
Are there any other questions? If not, we'll go to the voter board and try it, see if it works. That has passed on a vote of 21 yes. Next item is the health insurance part-time employee premium contributions. Would you like to explain that, Maureen?
I have two staff members that
Okay.
worked on this. Human Resources Director Hendy and Finance Director Scalish.
Okay. Would you like to come forward? We'll make a motion to approve and then second it and then discuss it.
I'll make a motion to approve it, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Fisher, seconded by Roy Engelbert. Kelly, you want to come forward and explain it and answer all the questions?
I'll do my best. Good morning. The resolution before you is for insurance coverage on part-time employees, those between 30 and 39 hours and 24 and 29 hours. The contribution levels were determined by running through the figures. Shirley can give you very good details on that. And they average out to be approximately what they are paying now, those people that fall into those two groups.
Are there any questions? You did a pretty good job.
Makes sense.
I guess we'll go to the voter board and vote for it or against it. Ready? That is passed by a vote of 20 yes and 1 in absentee, or, yeah. No,
Abstention.
Sustain, yeah.
That's the state.
Doesn't say it in there, though, so. Oh, there, abstain, there it is, okay. Next item is a transfer of non-budgeted funds for replacement of the building control system and jail surveillance. David,
Thank
you're
you,
on the
Mr.
clock now for the rest of the meeting.
I know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I think. I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2013-51 to transfer non-budgeted funds. Oops, sorry, back up. Resolution 2013-50.
I'll second.
Seconded by Dale, okay, go ahead, explain it.
What this pertains to is the door and video control system for the jail has reached its useful life end, if you will, and we've had a great deal of difficulties with it, and we're having more and more problems with it. The Sheriff's Department does have a number of funds, the Jail Assessment Fund, the Jail Commissary Fund, some capital offset funds that we have from other capital funds that were not completed this year, that have monies left in it to put towards this project. It originally came to us in the CIP, and the next three resolutions will all be referring to things in the CIP. Did you have this? So it may get confusing as we go through these next 3 or 4 resolutions, but I'll refer to a couple of things. The Finance Committee determined that it would be in the best interest of the county to go ahead and put this project into 2013 and take it off of the 2014 CIP project because funds were available through the jail funds and some unfinished capital project funds. And the total project would be about $375,000. And rather than run it in 2013 and 2014 CIP, since we had to get it started this year, we are recommending, Finance Committee is recommending that we take all of the funds out of the CIP and instead fund it with the unassigned fund balance and the funds as presented here in the resolution from the various jail funds.
Okay. Are there any questions? Hugh?
I have a question for Dave. Are we using the commissary funds, part of those, or not? I don't quite.
Yes. Yes, as listed there, line 20.
Okay, gotcha. All right, sorry.
Are there any other questions? If not, go to the voter board and vote yes or no. Or abstain. That's an option. That is passed in a vote of 21 yes, no negative ones. David, next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2013-51.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mark Miller. Go ahead.
This has to do with the repeater tower in Bailey's Harbor that would go on the Cellcom Insight Tower that's in place over there. When we started doing, most of you will recall, we started doing the tower communications project over the last couple of years. We took $2.4 million out of the unassigned fund balance and took a 5-year capital improvement program and combined it into a 2-year project. Part of that was doing narrow banding of all the radios. When we narrow band, it reduces the effectiveness and the distance that the radios can transmit, of course. So we anticipated that somewhere along the line we may have some problems, that once the narrow banding took place, we may have some dead spots in the county. Well, it turns out that those dead spots are in the Bailey's Harbor area, and our EMR and fire services can't communicate. They're not getting paged when events occur. And so we would like to go ahead and proceed in getting that repeater funding put into place sooner rather than later. Why put it in this year rather than the 2014 CIP, which again, I refer you to the CIP. You'll see that it was listed under there under information systems, the Bailey's Harbor repeater site for $200,000. If you recall, this body approved matching funds for the FEMA grant that the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department was able to obtain. Those funds have to be used within a 1-year period of time. We feel, we hope, and we feel that this repeater site may fall under that FEMA grant. If we don't complete it within the 12-month period of time, we have no opportunity to get those funds reimbursed to us. So if we get it started this year in 2013, rather than putting it on the 2014 CIP, we have an opportunity to get some or all of it reimbursed through that FEMA grant. We don't know yet what that amount may be, but if we don't put it in, if we don't do it now, we won't have the opportunity to apply for those funds. And we're going to have to do it anyway. So again, the finance is recommending we take it out of the unassigned fund balance, take it off of the 2014 CIP, and proceed with the project now.
Are there any questions? You're doing a pretty good job.
Excellent.
Go to the voter board and vote her up or down.
Fantastic.
That has passed 21 yes. Next item, David.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2013-52.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Biz. Go ahead.
Again, staying with the theme of the 2014 CIP plan. As you're all aware, the CIP plan takes place over a number of months. All the departments, all the oversight committees put together capital projects, things that they believe need to be done or would like to be done. over the next 1 through 5 years. Today, we're looking at the 2014 capital plan. As part of that plan also...
Wait a second, you got that resolution before, that you're one up on yourself.
2013-52.
Yeah, okay. You started talking about the capital improvement. Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So as part of that process, in addition to what you find in the capital improvement plan and the changes or deletions or additions that the finance recommends to this body, we also take a look at other items on a quarterly basis, as hopefully most of you know. On a quarterly basis, finance takes a look at the unassigned fund balance and takes a look at projects, capital improvements, protection of assets throughout the county, and we try and determine if there's anything we should do to put in reserve in line items from that unassigned fund balance above our minimum requirements. So one of these items that are listed in this resolution are items that the committee looked at that came from either oversight committee or came from items that we as a finance committee have looked at over the last year or two of things that we believe we need to probably put some reserve funds in place for. Now understand, we're not saying we're going to spend these. It would have to come back here for approval from the Oversight Committee and from this body before any funds would actually be spent. But what we're asking you to do is to go ahead and put these in these reserved lines for these future uses. And I can go through it. There's $500,000 in EMS Central Station to build a new ambulance garage. $500,000 for the museum archive projects, which we've put off for a couple of years. $400,000 for potential land acquisition near John Miles Park. $100,000 for John Miles Park's improvements. You'll also note that in the CIP program, there's $100,000 that was added by the Finance Committee for the 2014 CIP program also. And Mr. Fisher is the one who brought up the John Miles. He may want to speak to the potential problem with water issues there and why we feel this needs to have money start to be put together for it.
I can if you want me to. Chuck is the chairman of Airport and Parks, but we went on our tour, and I have to say, I hate admitting when I'm wrong, but I was wrong. That parks tour was beneficial. Everybody should go and see John Miles Park when it's all cleaned up. When we talk about it, we talk about it as the fair park. And it's not the fair park. The fair uses it for, what, 4 or 5 days a year. What a beautiful piece of property that was. The grass was cut, the trees are nice, all lining the what do you call it, the midway there. Everything was clean. It really is an impressive piece of property, and it needs to be taken care of. And there are a lot of opportunities for that property that we can't take advantage of under the current situation. It needs some money put into it, and one of the primary needs is the water system. There's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but I believe the piping is 40 years old. There's a leak in it. It's plastic tubing, so they can't figure out where the leak is. The whole thing could have to be dug up to repair. And it's going to need more than the $100,000. It's going to need more than the $200,000. But we thought we're not in a rush to do it. It's a process that the Airport and Parks Committee members can go over a number of years to put a real timetable together for the improvements needed. But we thought putting $200,000 away, $100,000 into the CIP and $100,000 here would address that problem. And the reason I think Dave brings up the water is because we could be under the gun that the city could tell us at any time, I think 30 days notice, you will repair it. And if that happens, then we have to fix it right then and there, and that's why we went for the money right now.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Hugh?
What is the exact problem with the water, Kenny?
The piping is leaking. They can't tell where. And it's a long stretch. It encompasses the entire park, the entire midway.
Is that about the drinking water?
No.
Not the sewer.
Well,
I mean, if the water is leaking, you're seeing a big sinkhole right now.
yeah, no, it's leaking in the source. The pipes bringing the water through the system, through the park, is leaking somewhere.
Okay. You might
Go
be
ahead,
able
Dale.
to shed a little light on that. the main system right now going with that the city owns that runs through the park for the fire extinguishers and makes a loop going back around to the Thunder Hill area up there. That is cast iron, I believe, and that also has some leaks in it. That belongs to the city. And at the time that they replace that, we do have some pipes that run across the midway that have small leaks in them. Excuse me. And so obviously it'd be the time to replace it when the city goes ahead and does their main, which can happen anytime. But they have given us a grace period to fix the small leaks. They're not large where it's causing, sinkholes. But they do know that there's leakage there. They can hear it with their hydrophones.
And I assume the Parks Committee is going to look into this more deeper to figure it all out eventually.
We're waiting to hear from the city what their timetable is to repair and do their work on their end. And then, like Dale said, it'll be in our advantage to be able to hook on to those new connections once they're being run through there from their part. And then we don't know where we would go from there. We don't have a plan as of yet as to what our total water needs would be in there.
I would add that the discussion at the Finance Committee was that while we're talking $200,000, $100,000 for CIP and $100,000 from unassigned fund balance, we're also the whole idea of the conversation was that long-term improvement at John Miles Park would probably put $100,000 in the capital improvement plan each year for the next 3 or 4 years after that, up to a total of $400,000 or $500,000 to make the necessary improvements to be able to do other things other than just the fair there.
Hugh or Ben, Hugh, you got your hand up, or?
Go ahead, Hugh. That's all right.
I'd like to, one of the line item, let me zoom in off here. One line item was, I think 27, I can't get the thing come back on here. That was $400,000 for land acquisition, land, acquired land.
Yeah, there's no plan whatsoever yet. That's just sort of a placeholder, I guess would be the correct term, to have some money there just in case something would.
So this is part of the park system, or, John Miles, or is it something else?
I guess we tabbed it as John Miles at the time, yes. But nothing will happen, with this money being put away, nothing's going to happen until it goes through the committees to come back to the county board again to be spent.
You know how many times I heard that story, Dan?
A lot. Okay.
A lot. It's as good as spent when you put it there right now.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Let Hugh finish, but when he's done.
Okay.
Total budget here, we're talking about $1 million just in this one resolution.
This is not coming from the budget, though. I mean, it's coming from the money
Unassigned balance.
Unassigned balance right
Yeah,
now.
you know something? If we didn't spend that money and we put it towards we levy about 23 million, that would reduce my taxes by about 4%. That's a lot of money for me personally, and I just want to make sure that what we're doing here is money well spent. And putting aside $400,000 for maybe buying property near the park, I'm not sure is a great idea.
Okay. Ben, you got to say something?
My only comment was back to John Miles County Park. The Midway, as many people know, is basically a road ready to be paved. And it would be the perfect opportunity to redo the utilities underneath that Midway, and then finally pave the Midway to not only control dust, but to make it available for other uses. For example, car shows has been one thing that we talked about as an Airport and Parks Committee. What a nice place for a car show John Miles Park would be. So, anyway.
Susan?
I wonder if one of you could share any ins and outs of how this plays into our levy situation. I struggle to understand how all these pieces fit together, and the staff knows that I call them with 1,000 questions. But again, kind of to go to what Hugh's saying is how or it does this play in any way to our levying for next year or for whatever?
Sure.
You want to explain?
Sure, I can, and Finance Director Scalish is in the back of the room as well, but there are two separate pieces to any budget. There's your operational piece, that's the day-to-day operation that funds all of the services that we provide to the citizens. That's the operational piece. That's governed by levy limits. That can only increase The maximum amount that that can increase, or it can go down, but the maximum amount that that can increase is this net new construction number growth. Counties are funded by unlike cities and villages, for example, it's straight assessed value. We, because we're funded throughout the entire county, we rely on equalized value. Each assessed value within each community is equalized so that our taxes are fairly distributed across property. This is the property portion of our budget, which, as Hugh said, is $24 million. So that it's fairly equalized and spread out over all of the communities, the towns, the villages, and cities throughout Door County. That's our levy. We are governed by levy limits. We can only increase by that growth amount. It creates problems then if we decrease that operational piece because we can only increase by that construction cost. That's the dilemma with the way the state of Wisconsin has imposed levy limits upon counties. There is a separate function of our budget called our undesignated reserve. That's to compare these two to what we all can understand because it's our household incomes. The operational piece would be what we spend our paychecks on, our mortgages, this is the same with the county, our food, all those other things. For us, it's the operations that we provide. There's a separate piece, our undesignated reserves, that is our savings account. That is the money that if we have a catastrophic event, or if we choose to cash finance items, that's the other choice that the Finance Committee made at their last meeting, the undesignated reserve would be the pot of funds that we use for that. We have an adopted policy that the dollar amount, and this is where, remember, I just arrived in October of last year. I've not been through a full budget cycle. But we would use that undesignated reserve for at least 2 months of our operations, which is the $15 million number that we oftentimes kick around. Right now, our undesignated reserves amount to about 23 or 24 million. I'm looking at Shirley. She's nodding yes. So the undesignated reserves would be that pot of funds that we would keep for savings only. It is not good financial policy for us to tap into that undesignated funds to fund our operation. That's the difference that we talk about. It is not, because remember, that's like when we deal with our own individual pocketbooks. When we're funding our mortgage and our food and entertainment, all of the normal operational needs, we don't tap into our savings account to fund that. That is not good policy. Do we do that occasionally here? Yes, we do, because we've consistently run surpluses, but it is not good financial policy. That is, in essence, the difference between this undesignated reserve. It is not good to tap into that for your operations, but what you can use it for are the one-time only. To use an example back to your home, your pocketbook. You could tap into your savings account to pay off your mortgage, to cash finance your cars. That's what's before you today with this piece that we're talking about, the John Miles, the cash financing of those one-time only things like construction, like fixing a road, paving a road, or some of the other things. A huge project like building an archives for our museums, or building an ambulance garage for our EMS. Those are those one-time only things that we would tap into the undesignated reserve to do. The side to this that concerns me as your new administrator, last year's budget, we tapped into this for $433,000 for our operational needs. That eventually will cause a hole for us. Not immediately, because if we're at 15 million, 24 million is what we currently have. There's clearly some play. But Shirley will tell you we have some concerns. We have OPEB concerns. That's that post-employment retirement, $2 million. So if we wanted to cash finance that out of undesignated reserves, that would be sound fiscal policy. The concerns for me as your administrator coming new to you would be when we do the $433,000 transfer from this to our operational side. The other concern that I have is an item that's coming up next, when we transfer roughly $725,000 into our highway operations, which is what we've also done, or it's coming before you a little later on. So that's a primer. If there's any questions, I hope I've been clear. If I haven't, As I said in those listening sessions, and I say at every meeting, if I haven't been clear in my answer, please tell me. If you'd like to hear from Shirley, she, I'm certain, can add. She's been doing the financial side exclusively for her entire career. If there's anything you wish to add, Shirley? If there's any questions that we need to address, we'd be happy
No,
to
I
do so.
think I really believe that you have handled every situation and where we go, and that especially the 434,000, and that was used to offset the 2013 budget. What happens in 2014 now is if we would not have that 434,000 in the unassigned fund balance, it would have to come from somewhere.
And that our choices are the levy, again, the $24 million that Supervisor Mulligan mentioned. That's what our levy is. That's how much property tax dollars go into our budget. We have another $3 million of sales tax revenue that goes into our budget.
Correct.
The rest of our fees, intergovernmental transfers from the state and federal government make up that $68 million, $67 million that we spend. Accurately say that, Shirley?
Yes.
Okay.
I would add a couple of comments to Maureen and Shirley. The dollar amount that we're referring to, the unassigned fund balance, we're talking about the dollars that are above our minimum and maximum unassigned fund balance. No, these are excess above that.
Anything above the 15,
Correct.
between that 15 million and
Correct.
24 million.
It's percent.
15,
15%.
which is how much?
12 to 15.
12 to 15 million,
12
yes.
to
12 to
15%.
12 to 15%.
And what's that dollar amount translate to, Shirley?
The percent are, let's see, we're at 4 million, about 7 million.
Okay,
15, the high is about 7 million estimated right now.
thank you.
So that being said, as
So
far
we
as...
have significant reserves.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're talking about the excess above that, that we're talking about, number one. Number two, by taking things off of the CIP proposal, we are in fact reducing the levy. So if you look at the line items that we've taken off, we're reducing the levy by doing that. So it's not
Point.
simply we're spending the money, we are reducing the levy by removing it from the CIP program and using funds that have already been levied to the taxpayers and using those dollars that we levied to do these capital items, the capital projects. Just wanted to clarify.
That's an excellent point, because if you don't cash finance them from someplace, they could be a direct operational, part of your operational
Correct.
piece, but one-time only operational piece. That's an excellent point.
Joel?
And to comment on what Hugh's concern was, line 18 there specifically says that full county board approval for any of these projects would be needed before any project begins.
Correct.
So, I mean, I understand what he's saying, and he's not wrong in what he says, but that statement clarifies that it's not going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year. It's got to come back here again for another kick.
Right. Biz?
And that's specifically why that line item was put in there.
We're asking that it be removed from one item, and put in another line item. So it no longer counts as the unassigned fund balance, but it's put in a reserve item to look at these type of projects.
I think it might be added too, though, that we questioned the auditor on the 12 to 15% number, and he said it was absolutely adequate at 15%, that we didn't have to raise it, there was no reason to raise it, and it was beneficial to put these in placeholders. Am I correct, Shirley, of using it as
That is-
placeholder?
that
Even
is
if we were to
correct.
bond or whatever, this puts us in a very good position, correct?
Right, if you ever had to go out to bond for a building or a specific project, being proactive and having money set aside in a reserve is considered very favorable.
Biz, you had a question?
Yeah, as stated, we're required to have between 12 and 15% in the undesignated fund. If we approve this resolution and remove the 1.5 million out of the fund, what will the percentage be?
Oh, it's in the bottom, it would be 20.28%.
After we remove the 1.5?
Yes.
Yes.
Right now, you're 4 million over.
It's on page 5 of our Zoom.
Okay.
It's also in the resolution under fiscal impact.
Chuck, first, then Hugh.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I want to make it to the listening audience too is that these projects that are on here are not something that we're just dreaming up at the Finance Committee, but they've all been addressed from the various committee levels coming forward, letting us know what we should be preparing for in the very near future, that these are valid issues, and we're just doing some pre-planning.
Correct. Hugh?
Well, I'd just like to comment. I understand exactly what Maureen is telling us about our budget and finance. You're absolutely correct. But the bottom line is this: the money comes from the taxpayer, vast majority of it. And to me, some of these expenditures seem a little frivolous. Like, you know, you were very much in archives. I was in there. I'm very much into it. I'm not sure that if you ask the majority of the people in Door County if they'd like to spend $500,000 on a new museum for the archives or the thing over here, if everyone give that a big support. So I find it difficult to just continue to spend money just because we have the money. Just leave it exactly where it is.
Okay. Anybody else? Ken?
But we are leaving it where it is. We're just earmarking for potential needs later.
Kenny, you know that just means that's spent.
No,
It's a little bit different this time because there is that line on this resolution that says it has to definitely come back to the county board before it's spent. Unlike a number of projects that did happen, that line wasn't in that resolution. I think in fairness, we're talking about the horse barn event, you know, that line wasn't.
The multi-purpose building.
Right.
At least I can laugh.
That line wasn't in that resolution when it started out, but this time that one sentence is in this resolution.
There are, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but there are pitfalls. We have extra money. Basically, we have cash. Nothing wrong with that. Could we give this back to the taxpayers and decrease the levy limit? Yes, we can. But because there's a freeze on, once you lower the tax levy, you can't come back the next year and bring it up to the level it had been prior, because they won't allow that. You can't say, well, we were at 3 before, we reduced it to 2 for 1 year, now we want to bring it back to 3. They won't allow that. Am I correct on that?
You've absolutely hit
Okay.
upon the flaw
Now,
with levy limit.
that will give us a smaller pot to work with to accomplish what we need to accomplish. I'm not in favor of growing county government or any government, but right here in the county, I am in favor of maintaining the status quo, and I've said this before. We've come to expect a certain level of service from our county government, and if we put ourselves in a position where we can't afford it, what do? Cut the ambulance service in half? That's good, then they're gonna squawk. If we give the money back, say, for the ambulance, the proposed possible central station, 500,000. If we give that back to the taxpayer and we decide next year in 2 years, you know, we really do need it. It's a need for the citizenry, and they're calling us and telling us they need this, and we don't have it. Now we can't raise the levy limit to get the money back. We have to borrow it, and I'm sorry, but borrowing puts us in worse shape at that point in time than if we had put the money away when we had it. So it's, and like Chuck said, these are not items, some of you have been here, there's some of you who are new, so it's all new to you. Some of us have been here for a number of years, and we understand that these issues these areas we address with cash are issues that have been going on for many, many years. They're nothing new. They've been going on for a long, long time. They're not something we dreamt up last week to spend our money on, okay?
If I could add one more piece, you're exactly correct. The resolution that's before you right now, cash financing these projects, is good fiscal policy. To cash finance your capital needs is good fiscal policy.
Are there any other? Go ahead, Hugh.
I would agree exactly with what you just said, but the problem is, it's good fiscal policy under the current regulations we're living with. Would you allow me that?
Correct.
How you pick what projects, I think, is what
you're correct on that one.
So maybe what we need to do
The
is have
difficulty of the
admin-
decision is how you pick those projects that you end up.
So maybe what we
with
need to do is get the admin committee to start working with state government to allow us to run our county in a more efficient manner.
You're correct.
You know,
You're 100% correct.
Kenny's right, you know, if you don't levy the $1 million, you're screwed the next year when you need it, you know? And
Which is not
companies-
right.
Companies just don't operate that way.
No,
And it makes us operate inefficiently.
You're absolutely correct.
You're right.
So maybe the admin committee needs to start working on their governor to change a few things to let us work more efficiently.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go to the voter board and vote yes or no.
Oops.
Wait.
Pardon?
Go ahead and make it that year.
I did.
That is voted on a pass of 19 yes and 2 no. Next item is the capital improvements plan. David?
Okay, finally.
Your
what I've
last
been-
one.
Finally what I've been referring to.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve resolution number 2013-53, the capital improvement plan.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Kathy.
If you take the chart that we've been referring to for the previous three resolutions, you'll see that on the top was pavement reconstruction for the airport. That will be a continued line item to add dollars to. Next is the highway. The highway department has gone through and made some changes to what their original request was. And if you go down, you'll see that the total dollar amount for the highway is $4.3 million, which includes federal funds, state funds, and $300,000 transfer from Shirley, correct me if I'm wrong, was that bridges and roads?
That is for previous highway projects that came in under budget.
Leftover dollars from previous.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Then the information systems, you'll see the two items, the Bailey's Harbor repeater site and the Door County Jail video and control upgrade, which we took out by previous resolutions. Also remaining is the HIVAC for the Justice Center. You'll see where the parks, the Percy Johnson restrooms, and of course the John Miles Park, we've had previous discussion on $100,000. We're putting $100,000 into the 2014 CIP for that. Under the Senior Center ADRC, you'll see that we removed, Finance recommends remove the $1.2 million for the Senior Center ADRC and push it forward into the 2015-2016 timeframe. If you would recall, last year we approved $300,000 from the unassigned fund balance for the Senior Center for remodeling and improvements. Nothing has happened with that $300,000 yet. It may end up coming back to the unassigned fund balance at the end of the year, but at this point in time, there's been no improvements budget or put in place for that money. The Admin Committee and Finance Committee talked about this. I know it's been talked about at other committees. The general feeling was that until we get the food issue resolved at the Senior Center, that the Finance Committee did not want to talk about capital funds for the building project. That being said, the total dollar amount of the capital improvement plan for 2014 would be $4,583,577. Am I correct in that, Shirley?
That is correct.
And nothing for long-term financing in that resolution?
Right, and
Correct.
as we had discussed, as a result of doing our cash financing for most things, there's nothing that we're looking to put in either short or long-term financing. Now, this does currently show increase in the levy by about $798,000. I would anticipate that that will change between now and final budget time. We don't have the final budget put together. We're still working, obviously, on the comp plan and a number of other things that may affect what we're going to ultimately end up doing with the budget. But the Finance Committee will continue to look at the capital improvement side and see if we need to do anything else with unassigned funds to allocate to the capital improvement to continue to decrease the potential levy. But until we finalize through the budget the next 2 months, we don't know how it's going to shake out yet.
Chuck?
I guess just for the seniors that are listening to this, when they hear that 1.2 million was put off into another year, I guess it wasn't that that sum of money would be all that was spent, but were we not talking about that might be something that we would borrow as a project to do like a senior center?
Correct. If you're going to build, then that qualifies for long-term financing.
There also is, correct me, Shirley, $400,000 in the budget right now for that that hasn't been spent?
It's 300,000.
300,000, okay,
Right.
300 hasn't been spent. So if we ever did come to the conclusion that we had to do something out there and it was, say, $300,000 or less, we could do it when the decision's made.
And again, we would look at the unassigned, the excess unassigned fund balance, put the dollars in there too. That would be the kind of project that would fall right under that.
But my point has been along, and I think people have agreed to me, that the food situation out there is like 10 or 15% of the whole project, and it takes in 90% of the argument of the building. So we want to resolve the food situation, how the meals are delivered, who does the cooking, where it's done, and et cetera, before we decide whether you want to do something with the senior citizen center or what to do with the senior citizen center. And that's started the process of figuring that out.
If I could, one last one. The $1.2 million was never funded. So that's a key too.
Yeah.
So that's, it didn't go away, it was never funded.
No, I mean, it was in a proposed,
But it was never funded with any source of revenue. So, but there is $300,000 to potentially do some renovations or to go, once you answer the important Dan question about what happens with the food service, the $300,000 could be used for either renovations or a building project, but that's to be determined later in the future.
Hugh?
I think,
Go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
I just wanted to let the seniors know that they
Yeah.
haven't been forgotten.
No,
Right.
they haven't.
They're
Yeah.
still in our,
Yep.
in our sights.
On the radar screen. Hugh?
I was just going to ask, has anybody approached the city of Sturgeon Bay for helping us with that project financially?
I don't think so, but the city is part of the county, so,
I understand that.
okay.
But we should maybe rename this the Sturgeon Bay Senior Center, shouldn't we?
No, we should not.
I don't want to get into that discussion now. There are an awful lot of people that do go there that don't live in the city of Sturgeon Bay, though. Anyway, Susan?
I just want to clarify. I think what I heard David say, that he called attention to the fact that this is an increase over the CIP for 2013, and I'm seeing a 31% increase down here.
Correct.
Right? So I think I heard you say that as the budget process goes forward, if it's looking like we're in trouble because of our operational costs, then, and staying under the levy cap, then the finance would relook at this as a source of adjusting that. Is that right?
That's partially right. We would look at potentially to adjust it, but there are a lot of other things that occur within the budget between now and finalizing the budget where other dollars come, go, appear,
Right,
disappear, as it's all compiled. And
Okay.
until we get a little bit closer to that final budget number, we don't know exactly what actual dollars ultimately we'll have available
Right.
and what shifting of dollars we may have to make.
So none of this is carved in stone.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You've got another 2 or 3 times that you can adjust this before the final budget is. Surely they would love to have this in concrete and stone so they could plan forward, but it's adjustable, correct?
Well, this is the first piece of the budget process, and usually it's the most costly. So therefore, it just sets the tone for the rest of the budget, and it helps us out. And as has been mentioned, you have all the way until November budget hearing. This can change.
Are there any other questions? Biz?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. In regards to the paving reconstruction projects, on the County B project, it looks like there's revenues there from the federal of $741,500. Do we need to do that project to get that money? Is it a use it or lose it deal with that?
John Kaloji's coming to the mic. I know those numbers can be readjusted throughout the year, and they have been every year so far, so go ahead, John.
That particular funding is through a federal STP rural grant, and so it is earmarked specifically for that project. We have an option to move that money around if we desire it, okay? But you have to go through a new application process, and you have some new regulations and guidelines associated with it because the federal program has changed. If you don't use it, if you don't do that project, It's not an easy process to just simply move it over, but you do not have to specifically use it or follow the federal guidelines. We'd have to fund it 100% at our own cost then.
Well, I guess where I'm getting is there county trunk roads that are in worse shape than County B, where that money could be used, you know, before you, we're talking from the city limits all the way to Little Harbor and County B. I've driven on it recently and it appeared to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and that question has come up a lot because of the condition of roadway. It is in decent condition, but our goal is to put in simply an overlay, and which allows you to relatively inexpensively versus a total reconstruction project and thicker asphalt, to greatly extend the life of that roadway at a relatively low, much lower cost. So that is the purpose of doing it. It is right now, sections of that roadway were paved about 14 years ago. And they're a little bit late for an overlay, but the road was designed well and built well. It's in good shape. So that's been the purpose and discussion both at the Highway Committee level and with the public that we've already talked to.
Thank you. And my other question, the project for County W on Washington Island was put off for 13. And now it's scheduled for 14. And why are the numbers so different from 13 to 14? For instance, the state now has revenues of $250,816, where on the 13 budget, it was
125,000.
yeah, 125.
Because we're using back-to-back local road improvement funds is the plan. That program hasn't come out for 2014-15, but I anticipate applying for it. Therefore, we'll have both our 14-15 money available as well as our 12 and 13 money available, which was earmarked for that project, which is why we were able to do it. Now, the project costs, as I've been developing estimates and getting quotes for the project, the costs are coming in significantly higher than what was looked at over a year ago. So we're getting closer, but it's that Washington Island cost of doing things.
Well,
So.
the town chairman is here, and I think, didn't you want the road a little wider for bicycle lane from what was originally planned?
No, it was originally planned to have bicycle lanes all along.
Paved shoulders.
Or paved shoulders, correction, yes. Paved shoulders.
So there's, and that's going to obviously require a little more money to do that, so.
That's been in the estimate from the beginning. What we're finding is the cost to get an asphalt plant to the site as well as products on the site are much greater than we originally anticipated.
Mobilization.
Mobilization costs are higher, getting everything there.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? You?
I want to ask John a question. John, there's, with the exception of Washington Island, there seems to be perhaps no other Northern Door roads scheduled. Is that a?
I think there's a stretch on T, is there not? Hang on, I'll get to my list.
T is 57 or south.
Bagnell Road, 57 and Bagnell Road.
Right.
There's a stretch on County T, and then of course you have W, and of course, and then you have B.
Yeah.
So you have B, T, and W.
Wasn't there Highway ZZ was on that one time? Did that disappear?
I'm looking ahead into my future years where we have ZZ. It's not for this year. Actually, ZZ isn't scheduled for until 2017.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, go to the voter board. That is passed with a vote of 20 yes, 1 no. Ordinances, there are none. There's no new business that I know of. Oral committee reports. Chuck.
I guess I just want to make a correction. Last month, I gave the wrong date for Penny Park dedication. You're all invited on Sunday to come out there at 1 o'clock on July 28th. Hopefully it's a sunny day and have a nice dedication.
Thank you. Any other oral? Susan?
Last time I mentioned that the Wisconsin Coastal Management was having lake level meetings, and we didn't know when, but you may have gotten a notice that it's August 8th at Crossroads at Big Creek, I think 6:30. You should have gotten an email from Bill Schuster about it. But that's our chance to say what we want to say.
Okay. Tell them they're low. Go ahead, John.
I just want to give a attaboy to the highway shop and thank Washington Island for putting off their road work for 1 year because it managed the highway to be able to go out and do a repair job on Duluth Avenue, which was much overdue.
Okay.
And they really did a nice job.
Any other oral committees? If not, any questions on the minutes of the committees? If you want to go. Review of vouchers, claims, and bills. Anybody have any questions on them? If not, the only announcement is the Penny Park dedication, like Chuck has just said, and the next county board meeting is Tuesday, August 27 at 9 o'clock. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I won't be here next
See you Sunday.